William Whalen here with GetMoreSports.com, talking about some of the weekend upsets that we saw this weekend. Tons of ranked teams going down both at home and on the road. Let's get into it. I want to first start with probably the most significant upset of the weekend, and that is BYU taking down Gonzaga. The Zags were clinching to the last number one seed in most bracketology projections of the NCAA tournament. This loss certainly takes that off of the table. It also takes off the table their undefeated run through the West Coast Conference. Now, Gonzaga is still going to be a top two seed in the NCAA tournament, and they're still a talented, very lethal team that you don't want to match up against in the tournament. However, this certainly shows that they are indeed human. They are indeed susceptible to letdowns. Now, BYU is talented, and they can score the ball, but this is a game that Gonzaga definitely should have won, and it's got BYU back in the conversation when we look at the bubble. Speaking of another bubble team, Oklahoma State has fallen off recently in the Big 12. They had really creeped up in a lot of brackets to all the way to a number 7. I thought that might be a little high for them, but I certainly thought an 8 or a 9 was reasonable. And they lose to Texas Tech, the bottom of the Big 12, on a last-second jumper from the Red Raiders. Of course, Red Raiders did lead big at halftime, but the Cowboys came back in the second half but couldn't pull it off. This is a really bad loss for Oklahoma State. Not something that they wanted, not something that they want on their resume. Staying in the Big 12, now we turn our attention, of course, to the Iowa State Cyclones. They get beat by Baylor in Ames last week, and that was a really telling win, not just for Baylor and showing how strong they can be, but how Iowa State can be susceptible as well as Gonzaga to those letdowns. Iowa State follows that loss with a loss to Kansas State, putting them definitely behind the 8 ball in terms of competing for a Big 12 regular season title. Some I thought they would do, but they've certainly fallen behind the pack a little bit with the likes of Baylor, West Virginia, and of course Kansas kind of staying ahead of them with this most recent loss to Kansas State. I also want to stay out west looking at the Mountain West, and what a big-time win for the Boise State Broncos. They have really come back from the depths of forgotten land, starting 0-3 in the Mountain West Conference play, and now they sit at 12-4. 12-4. Thanks to Derek Marks, this team has won off 12 of their last 13 games, and they now hold the tiebreaker over San Diego State to sit atop the Mountain West Conference standings. This is unbelievable. I'm really, really impressed by the job that they've done over there and the way that they've kind of rebounded, stuck together, and come together. A team that many thought last year was going to be kind of one of the surprise teams and a sleeper pick going into March, and they had a little bit of a letdown. Definitely have come back strong this year. Good look on the Broncos. Going out to the Atlantic 10, Michael Krumholtz is going to love this one. What about the Dayton Flyers? The job that they continue to do. And, of course, that translates this weekend to a big-time win over number 22 VCU on the road. Dayton, Archie Miller, again, we've talked about it many times here. Got to be one of the hottest names in the coaching ranks for big jobs, high major jobs after this year once again. The Flyers, I think that really books their tournament's life as a single-digit seed, in my opinion. They've got a really nice resume. I think they've got to be a 9 seed, but I wouldn't necessarily be surprised to see them at a 10, just because who knows how the committee will evaluate them. I think that they've got a chance to move up even higher than an 8 or a 9 or a 10, given the right circumstances that fall their way. Finally, we finish things up, and this is an interesting one. Boston College gets its second conference win over North Carolina State. I don't think this pushes the Wolfpack out of the tournament. I think that they've got enough on their resume to be on the right side of the bubble, but certainly something that they did not want to suffer and did not want to kind of shake up their momentum, cause any reason for concern from the committee. A loss to Boston College certainly does that. I think the Wolfpack are safely in, don't get me wrong, but nonetheless, seeding-wise, I think this really throws a wrench in their plans. And just, you want to go into March playing your best ball. And when you lose a game like this, it makes everybody question, the big question on the bubble is, okay, you've shown who you can lose to, who can you beat? If you're on the bubble, you've shown you can lose to some teams you shouldn't lose to. Who can you beat? And North Carolina State has as good of a 2-win answer for that with North Carolina and Duke as anybody else in the bubble. So I still think they're in, but nonetheless, they trip up this weekend against Boston College.